Hello everyone, this is a first impressions review of the Drop X-Mid 2P, designed by Dan Durston. It's an ultralight, dual-door, dual-vestibule, trekking pole-supported tent for 2 people that weighs 38 ounces. It comes with 8 titanium shepherd hook stakes that are certainly ultralight, but will definitely be augmented with some more robust stakes for in the field. For this setup, in nearly perfect conditions on soft but firm ground, I'll be using them. The tent comes in 2 separate parts, the net tent and the fly. I've attached the 2 together for this setup to show a more realistic deployment, but they can both be set up separately, although the net tent does require a bit of rigging to use independently. This shelter sets up extremely easily. Simply stake out the corners in a rectangular shape, keeping good tension on all of them, and insert the trekking poles through the 2 doors. You can insert them tip up or tip down, although it will be more secure with the tips up because of the grommets in the top for the tips to fit into. One of the great things about this tent is that it doesn't fall down with only 1 pole inserted, which makes this quite easy to set up with just 1 person. When I first set this tent up, I didn't get a great pitch, as you can see here. To fix this, I adjusted the stakes on the peak line to have more tension and eased up on the other 2 corner stakes. That immediately resulted in a better pitch, and was pretty easy due to the Linelocs on the corners. From the top, it has a very rectangular footprint, and amazingly, it only needs a minimum of 4 stakes at the corners to set up, which is refreshing. However, I definitely used 2 more stakes on the doors, since it makes them much easier to use. It also has pre-attached guy lines and line locks on the peaks for more stability in high winds. To give you an idea of the ingenious design Dan came up with, here's an outline of the internal floor that makes such great use of those offset peaks. Right, let's talk about the features. This tent uses waterproof No. 5 YKK zippers on the fly, which are extremely smooth and satisfying to use. It features 2 vents on each end of the tent, which are large kickstand style vents, and can be opened from the outside or inside of the shelter, a nice bonus if it's raining. The corners feature line locks for easy tensioning, and the inner tent is connected to the fly with a clip and some shock cord on a fixed line. A new feature compared to the 1-person version is the addition of 2 elastic loops on the floor that connect to the trekking poles to give the floor some more security. I really like these. The doors also have a clever but slightly fiddly way of rolling up, still a much better solution than a lot of the toggle-based systems I'm used to seeing. The peaks are designed to fit trekking pole tips and are heavily reinforced. Overall, I personally really like the way this tent looks. The color and shape are understated and pleasing, and the overall design is definitely minimal compared to some other louder tents. The fly is made from 20D sil poly fabric and weighs 22.5 ounces on its own. The sil poly is very nice to see, since it won't sag or take on as much water as sil nylon, and I hope to see more shelters use this material in the future. Well, enough wide shots, let's take a look inside. After using that extremely satisfying zipper, you'll immediately be struck by how spacious this shelter is. Having used tighter 2-person tents in the past, the extra room is something I'm definitely looking forward to. The inside has 4 large pockets, 2 on each side, which are in a great location for stashing all manner of things. Turn the camera around to me, see how I fit in this. So I have an abnormally long torso for my height. I'm about 6 even on a good day. So it's just barely brushing it. If I was sitting on a sleeping pad, it probably would be brushing it. There are areas where you can grab and kind of cinch up this to pull it up even higher. I'll set you guys down over here. Let me see if I can get this cinched up a little bit more. Oh, that's a lot more headroom. I stand corrected. That's a lot more headroom. Okay, so look at that tall torso guy, and I'm feeling pretty good right here. There's still about 1.5 inches of clearance everywhere around, so that's really nice to see for a double wall shelter. As I said before, I'm about 6 foot even, so if I were to spread out like this, I got a lot of room. A lot of room. It's really, really nice in here. It's really big. And I got 2 sleeping pads that I can set up for comparison, a regular 20-inch Thermarest X-Lite women's, and then I also have an Emo switchback that I can throw in here for size comparison. So this is what it looks like with 2 pads in here. It's quite a bit of space. I'd say this is looking very, very comfortable. Okay, I've got the new Air X Lite. This is the women's size, so despite the fact that I'm 6 feet, I just barely fit on this perfectly, so I'm pretty happy with the size of it, but this is a 2.5-inch thick inflated air mattress, so just to give you an idea of how much room there is, even on an air mattress. Let's lay down. And yeah, it's about what you'd expect. This is still pretty cavernous. I would probably scoot up a bit, way like this, and I still have quite a bit of room down at my feet. I got quite a bit of room up at my head. This would be just fine. Despite how satisfying it is to talk features and specs, all of this talking is no substitute for actually using the shelter. So, after midnight had come and gone, because life in quarantine is a never-ending spiral of perpetual time disassociation, I trekked back outside for the test run. This also gave me a great excuse to use some fast vintage glass for my camera to get these low-light shots. During use, I was pleased to see that the vestibules were generous and well proportioned to fit a standard backpack, and of course the rest of the shelter handled the other gear with no issues at all. Well, in the morning, I was very pleased with the performance, or at least as much as I could under the absolutely beautiful and ideal conditions I had to test it under. I set up 2 quilts and 2 sleeping pads to get an idea of space, and it's no surprise that everything fits quite well. I should also note that I did try lying down the opposite direction as intended, with my feet pointing towards the end with the pole, and I fit about as well as I expected. The headroom is a bit tight, but it's definitely doable, and if I were sharing this tent with a partner, I'd definitely flip to this direction to remain facing the same way. Unfortunately, I forgot to get any of this on video, so you'll have to take my word for it. There's a lot to say about the X-Mid 2P, and also a lot to love. For me personally, it checks almost all the boxes that I'm looking for in a tent like this. It's double-walled, it's spacious, it's lightweight, it's easy to set up, it's very storm and wind-worthy, and I think most importantly, I really like the color. The addition of the new side pockets was actually really great. I love the location, I love how big they are, and it was a nice touch. A few things that I can't comment on. I haven't taken this out in a storm, obviously. It was almost perfect weather here last night, so yay. I haven't taken it out in any high winds. I don't know how the bathtub floor is going to respond if your campsite floods and you end up waking up in a lake. I'm also not sure how well this tent is going to work for 2 people that want to sleep in the same direction. I know the point of this tent was not really to optimize that, and that's okay. You know what you're getting into with this. That offset pole structure creates great headroom for 2 people facing opposite directions, but for 2 people that want to sleep in the same direction, that could just be an issue. Another thing I can't comment on is condensation. We're in an area that doesn't really have a whole lot in the ground. I'm up on a cliff, it hasn't rained for a while, so I can't comment on that. For what it's worth, I didn't see any, but I'm also not expecting any. And if you do want to hear a nitpick, these door attachments, as clever as they are and as much as I like them, they're just a little bit fiddly. And if it seems like I'm struggling to come up with bad things to say about this tent, you're absolutely right. It's amazing. It's the tent that I am so excited to use for many years to come. It checks off nearly all the boxes that I'm looking for, and then some. Yes, it's not the lightest tent on the market, but for what it's giving you for those extra ounces, there's nothing really that comes close, especially for the price. This is one of those tents where you appreciate the sum of the parts way more when you're actually using it. It's really just solid all the way around. I'd love to have another person in here to kind of show you how 2 people fit in this, but you know, it's quarantine. Your options are a bit limited. I don't know if you can hear those birds, but they're definitely something.